Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin On Rugby podcast. Joining me this week is someone making his 39th Harpin Pod appearance, following on from number 38, which was for the preview of this very same match. He also runs the blog Post to Post Sport. Welcome back to Mr. Kieran Duffy.
Yeah, glad to be on for the first win of the season. Glad I wasn't on the first 2 weeks. Yeah, enjoyed the game and nice to be back in the Aviva Stadium for another Leinster match.
Indeed, your first appearance of the season, and it was a win. There's no evidence to say that those two things are not related. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But listen, let's turn our attention to that match. It's our feature match of the week. And here's a generic 80-word summary of what happened. Leinster bounced back from their South African tour with a commanding 31-5 bonus point win over the Sharks at Aviva Stadium. First half tries from Osborne, O'Brien, Captain Van der Fleer set the tone. Deegan and McCarthy added second half scores, while Byrne converted 3. Hooker's interception was Sharks' sole reply. Debutante Kenny impressed late on, but no further points followed. The victory reignited Leinster's campaign and boosted morale ahead of next weekend's clash with Munster at Croke Park. Now, obviously, we're going to go into a bit more detail than that. To kick things off, Kieran is going to harp on a particular C word that can be used to describe Leinster's performance, and thankfully, it's one of the good ones.
Yeah, cohesion, a lot more improved from the South African tour. Could have used different C words for the first two games, but thankfully this is an all positive one. I thought generally, just the performance in general was a lot better, and a lot of that's down to the fact that I think we were over the pre-season blues a little bit. I think if you look back at that Stormers game, we never got going. We never got out of pre-season mode. It was nearly just like a pre-season friendly where the result didn't matter, except it was a competitive game. Second game against Bulls, then we were much better. Still not particularly good at times. And again, we a lot of their points, I think you said it on the Rap Pod last week, came from opportunities we handed Bulls. So we tidied a lot of that up. The Sharks' one score did come from an opportunity handed by Leinster. It was Harry Byrne throwing a big long looping Hail Mary pass, which wasn't at all necessary. I mean, we were 3 tries up. That's the kind of thing you do if it's the last minute, you're not going forward. And and you need to try something special to try and get a point back in a knockout game, to try and get the win in a knockout game. But aside from that, I thought we were particularly good. Still not perfect, but particularly good. Looking at each of the 5 tries, I will say the 5th try, Sharks handed it to us. I mean, it was an overthrown line out. Gus McCarthy was in the right place. He had the wherewithal to catch the ball and decide to run really quickly and spot the gap. I mean, he could have easily paused there and tried to take it into contact, but I thought he was very alert, and it's good to see that late in the game because I think that's the kind of clinical thing that Leinster had in the past. But for the first 4 tries, I think the cohesion was on show. The first try, we had advantage for offside. Josh Van der Fleer taking the ball into contact, and then a great pass by Jamie Osborne, who I thought was really good. We were a bit worried that he might have picked up a bad injury, but he was available today, and I think he played really, really well. Good pass to Soraka, who we'll talk a bit about later. Quick ball to Deegan, that was good to see because and knowing when to take the ball into contact and knowing when to play a quick pass is really important. Deegan draws into the defender, passes it to Lowe. And really impressive by James Lowe here. He excellent chip kick through to Jamie Osborne, but crucially he waited right until he was about to be tackled to do it. He could have done it earlier and then it probably wouldn't have resulted in a try. This was the first score as well, so the Sharks clear this, they're probably growing a bit of confidence. But just really good passing, really good hands. Second try, more direct. Leinster have a scrum, easily won scrum. Gunne to Jimmy O'Brien, who snipes through again. That one's just off the training ground, but it was executed really well. Third try, again, this is the score is I think 14-0 at this point. Just willing to go through the phases, off a line out, take the ball into contact a few times, not rushing anything, which is good because I felt at times against Bulls, and possibly last season as well, we tried to do things that weren't on. We tried to, try to make something out of nothing, but this was just good. Just look, we're confident we could score here, take it through the phases, we're close to their line. And then Josh Van der Fleer, who was fantastic on his first appearance captaining the side, just spots a gap and saunters through unopposed. I don't think Sharks will be happy with their defending at all. I think in general Sharks will be unhappy with their first half performance. They improved in the second half. And we saw that with the 4 tries. Sharks actually defended really well and looked like they had stopped Leinster. Really good maul defence from Sharks. And if they had played like they did in the second half all game, it probably would have been a much closer game. But they managed to stop Leinster going forward. But then Fintan Gunne, really good pass to Jamie Osborne, who again had a great game. Quick ball to Deegan, threw a little dummy and ran through the gap easy. And there were just more complete plays, I found. There were just more things were coming off, and that's because they were more sensible and more, I suppose, planned out. We weren't trying to rush anything. We didn't have players on different pages. I suppose, look, that's probably to be expected in the first 2 games of the season. I said on the preview pod, I'm glad to get South Africa over with. I'm glad to get the tour over. We're in Europe for presumably the rest of the season, barring any away knockout games. But really good to get those games over with. So now we can forget about that and focus on the league. I think we'll need to be better, probably in bigger games. But I think we were a more complete side, more clued in, more glued together. And those 4 tries, 5th try, as I say, was just Gus McCarthy standing in the right position. Second half, scrum wasn't as good. And, I think that's mainly, I think Sharks improved in the second half was kind of the main thing. But I think well worthy to win. And as I said, really good cohesion throughout.
Yeah, I mean, we said on that preview on Friday that it wasn't so much like last week against the Bulls. We were kind of expecting to lose that, but with the way things went against the Stormers, we just wanted a better performance. But I think this week it was the other way around. The performance wasn't such a big issue. It was really important. We started getting match points on log points on the board, and we'd get the win. But they did that, and the performance was better. The cohesion, as you say, has been improving every week. You could see it against the Stormers. We did a whole segment on the pod about just how we couldn't work out what Leinster's attack strategy was. We couldn't work out what Leinster's plan was, just to simply advance the ball up the pitch. We just weren't. There was no rhyme, no reason to it. And unless we won a penalty in midfield, we weren't getting into the opposition 22. This time, it was, you could see it. You could, and where I was up in the media box, or it's basically the telly view, I suppose. You can see it from above. You could see the movements. You could see the way the players knew their positions, knew their roles, and they were doing it. The Sharks were defending narrow, but they, overall throughout the match, the Sharks didn't defend badly. They had some really great spells, and we scored the try. We scored that bonus point try when they were really going after us in defense, and they were really strong. But we were beating their narrow game by getting it quickly into the wide channels, and that's what happened for that first try. And it wasn't just the backline involved. You had both Deegan and Soroka involved in that set move that got it wide to low. And as you said, we had that little improvisation at the end, the little kick forward to Osborne, that little extra bit of sauce at the end of the move, and Osborne was able to finish. So that was a great finish for the first try, and that kind of continued throughout. You described all the tries. The second try was just an inside pass to O'Brien with Frawley running a dummy line. Very simple, but they executed it really well. I think the key now, Harry Byrne got player of the match, and I think he definitely deserved it. It was a great outing for him. It's great to have him back, and he's looking a much more complete player. I think the spell of Bristol did him well and good. But I think a key to what happened with Leinster as well was Fintan Gunne. I was kind of harsh on Luke McGrath in the preview as well, and in previous write-ups and raps and stuff. But I just think that what Gunne brings is what we got used to from Gibson Park is those long fizzed missed passes that take 2 players out of the game, and that helps get the ball quickly into those wide channels. But now we seem to have multiple players doing it. And he's able to do it. He's able to miss players out accurately, even within 5 meters of the try line. But you've also got a 12 as well. We're going to talk about Kieran Frawley for our bonus chat, but he was doing it as well. So when you have multiple players along the line able to throw those long passes, accurate passes, that's going to get it quickly into the wide channels and beat that narrow defense. And that's what was happening for the most part. Now, like you say, sometimes we tried a little too hard to get it quickly. There were some kick passes done or some long passes thrown that just weren't on at that time. But overall, the eagerness to get it out there into those channels was good to see, and we reaped the reward. Other things as well, not just, there wasn't just the attack. You mentioned the scrum. We did say in the preview that that the Sharks had on the bench they had Bonami and Koch on the bench. They had a strong front row. So the key was to build a lead by that final quarter, and we did exactly that. We had the bonus point in the bag. By the time that they came on and started winning penalties, the game was pretty much over at that stage. So they did get the job done on the day. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely improvement on what's gone before. And you can see now, a kind of a plan, an overall plan of the way Leinster attack is going to be doing. You can possibly see the influence of Tyler Blindown as well on our attack. So it was very good to see.
I think Fintan Gunne, he does have a bit of that Gibson Park in him. He does, and he's one of those players, a bit like Gus McCarthy. He probably would have been further down the pecking order if not for injuries. But then injuries happened. Like, I think Cormac Foley's been really unlucky with injuries, and now suddenly Gunne is probably, I'd be happy for him to be number 2 in a big knockout game. I mean, I think Luke McGrath was really good last season. He had a poor start to the season, but I would be fine if Gunne was playing. And, I think when the URC final came around and Gibson Park was injured, I think we were all a bit worried that, look, is Gunne going to be up to it off the bench? And he absolutely was. And yeah, he's good at those sniping runs and those big long passes. He's kind of an extra playmaking scrum half to have. And I think, at the end of the day, Jameson Gibson Park is an excellent player, but he is getting on in age. We don't know. I'd argue by the next World Cup, there's a chance Craig Casey may be starting games and Jameson Gibson Park may be finishing them. But I would say Fintan Gunne, I'd like him to stick around in Leinster rather than be in Ireland squads too soon. Maybe in November it's okay, but I think he'd really benefit from, let him start the game against Zebre. Don't bring him to Chicago with New Zealand. I think that's what and I know this sounds like genius hindsight, but I think that's what we should have done with Sam Prendergast. Get him involved in November and then leave him with Leinster for other internationals and let him play over the summer. I think with Gunne, I'd be happy for him to play against Zebre, maybe be in camp for the home-based games in November, and then in the Six Nations, he's probably not going to game time in the Six Nations. I mean, if Gibson Park and Greg Casey are fit, they're going to be playing their respective games. He's probably not going to get any game time there. So let him train with Leinster, let him play with Leinster, and then over the summer, maybe he can go on tour. But I think players can really benefit from getting more game time with their club before they really are their province, before really getting shoved into the international setup. So, but yeah, I think he's been one to watch for a while, I think.
Yeah, and of course, when we're talking about cohesion, it's not just the attack. I thought our defense was very good as well, and of course, you need cohesion for that, especially in the second half. I think the Sharks were starting to come into it at the beginning of that second half, and there was a key moment there where they'd escaped from the 22 and they'd moved up the field. They looked like they'd won a penalty, and they were starting to grow in confidence, but it was called back for not a yellow card, but it was a penalty back in the 22. I think that was a key moment in the entire game. But we were able to get our bonus point try from there. But they were defending well. But on our side, when we were keeping them out, the Sharks had the ball several times in our 22, and I thought we defended really well in those situations. So of course that needed cohesion as well. I've been throwing a lot of praise at the Sharks, but I think overall, their performance in this league hasn't been great. I remember back when we started Harpin On Rugby, before we'd even won a Heineken Cup, everyone called Leinster the sleeping giants. I think if you had a sleeping giant in this competition, it would be the Sharks. You've got a team that's got the likes of Khaleesi and Etzebeth and the star names that they've got on the team. They've got quality in there. They should 4 years of this competition, you think they would have at least reached a final by now, if not having won it. So that's the level we expect from them. But listen, Leinster overall, the cohesion was good to see, both with and without the ball. There's obviously improvements throughout the team. There's more test players to come back into the squad, but overall it is positive. Elsewhere in the URC, well, we didn't have storms disrupting the action this weekend, and there was mixed fortunes for the other provinces as Munster scraped a bonus point win in Cork with a bare minimum 4 unconverted tries in a 2019 win over Edinburgh, while Ulster also managed 4, but were more convincing in dispatching the Bulls in Belfast. Connacht failed to make it a Grand Slam weekend for the provinces, but did manage a losing bonus point in Cardiff, and there were also wins for Glasgow, Benetton, Ospreys, and the Stormers, who now top the table after securing their second whitewash in 3 weeks, although I can't quite remember who the other one is against. But for now, anyway, we must return to the Aviva. And Kieran, you also wanted to hone in on Leinster's back row.
Yeah, I think in general, the combination of Van der Fleer, Deegan, and Soroka was exceptional. I think I spoke a bit about Deegan at the start on the preview, just how he'd do without the captain's armband, because normally he'd captain a game like this. I don't think that stopped him being a leader on the pitch. Josh Van der Fleer, look, we know he's one of the most crucial players to Ireland. I think it's an issue that's going to raise its head come World Cup, that he'll be another 2 years older. Do Leinster and do Ireland really have a next in line for 7? I know from Leinster's point of view, Scott Penny is usually the backup. I don't think he's quite at a level where he could be called into an international squad, but I think it's something Ireland will lead. But in terms of Soroka, I think he's the kind of player who he's had bad injuries. He's missed out on a lot of game time, but now, a bit like Tommy O'Brien, if he can stay fit this season, he's probably going to be one of our best players in the regular season URC games. And the way he plays, I think he'll be playing himself into contention for either knockout games. I mean, we talked about Tommy O'Brien last year. Just hoping, please just don't get injured. Please just be able to see out games. And look, he was probably along with Deegan, probably our best URC player. Soroka's giving me that kind of vibe now this season. I think against Bulls, he was one of our better players. He was probably, if there was a Leinster man of the match, he was probably in the running for that. And I think today, again, he was excellent, and he'd probably be further up the pecking order. Don't know necessarily for an Ireland selection, but for Leinster selections in big games, he'd probably be further up the pecking order if it wasn't for injuries. And I think this is a season where he can make up for lost time. But the way he gets around the pitch, the way he, I wrote kind of tongue in cheek in my review of the game against Bulls last week that he has what you could call that dog in him. But I think there is a sense of that he's a very energetic player. He brings a lot to the team in terms of getting around the pitch, and crucially as well, he's good at offloading as well. He doesn't always need to take the ball into contact, but he's willing to, and he can kind of make those extra few yards. But I thought, look, he's excellent, and he's going to be a big player. I don't think there's any rush in getting into an Ireland squad. And to be honest, from a selfish Leinster point of view, I said it with Gunne, I'd really rather he stick around with Ireland for the season, or for Leinster for the season, excuse me, just to get game time and to fill our numbers, because I think he's going to be a crucial player for us. I think he's going to be what Max Deegan has become in a few years, just that good player who, or maybe what Rhys Ruddock has become in a few years, it was when he played, just that really good Leinster player who keeps things going when bigger names are away. Van der Fleer as well, really good throughout the game. Like the way he took the third try, we took it into contact a few times. They just spot that gap, and he walked through like there wasn't a Sharks defence in front of him. And Deegan kind of did the same for the fourth try. He just, was a couple of good passes, and he was in the right place, the right time. But I think crucially, generally speaking, I think our forwards were a lot better. I think Paddy McCarthy had a good game as well. Front row probably wasn't as good towards the end of the game when the subs came on, but generally speaking, I think our back row being much more improved allowed the half-back combination to be a lot better. I think, Sam Prendergast is probably going to be wondering where this kind of performance was in the first 2 weeks of the season, because that was something that probably made him look worse than he was. I think he was reasonably good in the first 2 games, but he just didn't have that go-forward ball. I think that's something that really helped with Fintan Gunn and Harry Byrne, that they were able to, they had that go-forward ball. They had those players in front of them making the yards and playing quick passes and getting the ball back quickly. So it allowed them to do well. But Soroka, I think, is he's going to be one to watch out for, and I really hope he can stay fit. I really hope he doesn't pick up any injuries, because we said it about Tommy O'Brien before. We've said it about other players that just if he can stay fit, he'll be a massive player for Leinster. And I think Max Deegan probably, I don't know, was eight his favourite position, but he certainly made it his own position. And with Caelan Doris injured as well, and look, at some point Doris and Van der Fleer are going to be away, and I'd wonder, is Deegan or Soroka one of the players who could potentially fit into that 7 role, because it seems we don't have a very natural next in line for the 7 role, so maybe we have to convert a 6 or an 8 to 7. So that might be something we see later in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was this fascinating back row for Leinster overall. I mean, you talk about Soroka and Deegan. I mean, they were incredible, and they've been incredible so far this season. Of course, Deegan did well last season. Soroka as well. I think they're at that level where, I mean, like, Deegan has obviously been around a bit longer, but Soroka has always played, even in the few appearances he had in seasons before last. He's always played like he belongs. He's ready, like he's ready to step up to this level. It's just like you say, he needs a run of games without injuries. It's the same as like Tommy O'Brien as well. Yeah, he was doing all sorts of things. He was doing little chips over the top. He was breaking down the sideline. He was trying to, he was very unlucky with the bounce on the end of that one. He would have scored himself then, but himself and Max, we talked about that first try, the way they just naturally just joined the line and were able to continue to help the ball along into the wide channels. All the work all over the pitch. It's great to see them. And when you're in it, when you have a team that can field like a back row, like of Conan, Van der Fleer, and Doris, when everyone's fit, like you say, they're often going to be away with the test team, and we're going to need players to step up, and they definitely qualify there. Of course, there's other players as well. Will Connors is there doing his chop tackles. He's good for that 7 role as well. Again, he's trouble staying fit. Penny, Cohesion, and don't forget Ryan Baird as well. I think he's done well in that kind of 5 row. We're kind of short players in the 2nd row at the moment, so he's kind of slotted in. He's our sort of Tyg Byrne at the moment. The sort of 5/6 kind of role, but he's been doing pretty well in that as well. Great yards after the carry. There was he helped set up that 3rd try. He did a strong carry and then kind of helped create that forward momentum that helped Josh score that try. But overall in the back row, we're really strong, and it is good to see. But listen, it's all a question of, like you say, keeping them fit and expanding on their all their different roles and being able to use them at the right time.
Yeah, I think combinations will be a big thing, because as you said, there's always complaints about how Leinster fill in a lot of the international team. But in fairness, I don't think it particularly benefits Leinster always to have Doris, Van der Fleer, Conan, Baird, to have the more experienced players away. I think the reason Leinster produce so many players is because the young players get a lot of game time, because we have to fill gaps, because the internationals can only play. It's kind of a self-fulfilling cycle of internationals play. They get limited game time because they have to be away from Ireland, 4 to 6 nations. So that means younger players get a chance. Your Deegans or Sorokas. I remember when Kieran Frawley made his debut, or like there are these players who get their chance, then they come on better, and then they end up in international squads, which means more younger players have to come on better. And I think that's something that it hinders Leinster sometimes in terms of, we talked about cohesion earlier. It hinders in terms of combinations, and maybe in terms of bigger games not getting over the line, because a lot of their players haven't played enough, probably. But at the same time, it helps the younger players get to a certain level, because they always end up playing a certain amount of games. But I think I'm kind of curious to know who ends up playing 7 when Josh isn't around. Scott Penny, I'm not going to write Scott Penny off. I think he's one of those players who has gotten a lot of criticism because he was so good at under 20s level. He looked like he was going to be one of those second coming players. I think it's similar to how every fly half who was able to kick the ball well was compared to Johnny Sexton. A lot of 7s are going to be compared to Josh Van der Fleer now, but like he's been decent, he's been useful, he's a good player, but he probably just hasn't hit the heights that he was expecting when he was playing for under 20s. But in fairness, he's still quite young. Probably the other way around for Barry. It's like his best position for Leinster is probably playing 6 times he's needed in second row. And in fairness, and they get on with it, and they're also very effective in those roles. But I think the team selection for next week is going to be really interesting in terms of how we line up. I think it'll be as stronger than the team we saw there against Sharks. I think it'll pretty much be the strongest team available because it's game against Munster in Croke Park. That's not a game to go with a second string in. But that's something that's going to be an interesting little storyline throughout the season. Just who plays 6, 7, and 8 when obviously Doris is out still for a little bit with injury. Banderfleer is going to be away a lot, and Conan's going to be away a lot. So I think that Zebre game is going to be crucial because the team leaves for Chicago, the Ireland squad, on the 21st. The Zebre game's on the 25th, so there'll be no one in that Ireland squad for the New Zealand game anyway. Zebre squad. So I think it's going to be really telling who plays because that's a game on these combinations. Players' game time because it's a game we should be winning. Zebre at home. It's no disrespect to Zebre, but I think that's just going to be an interesting story in the back row. Who plays where and how it plays out, and crucially, who plays in that number 7 slot. I think in general we could look at who plays in 7 for all the provinces because that's where Ireland in general need depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just from a broader sense, you talk about selections for when internationals away. We need an honorable mention for Mr. Joshua Kenny, who made his Leinster debut. Not a lot of people knew about him. I met some friends before the game, and they were all asking me, "Who is this guy?" And it was very hard to find information on him online. Bernard Jackman in the commentary box gave us information. He said we knew he'd played sevens, but apparently he went straight into the sevens. This was apparently only his second ever game of senior 15s rugby, which is it's incredible for that to be the Aviva Stadium in front of the crowd. And he did really well in his few touches in the end. He's a strong fend, strong carries, joined the line well, seems willing to. It's almost like a James Lowe kind of player, but it was an impressive start. Obviously, he's got a lot more to show down the line, but it's always good to see talent coming through.
And it's probably good for him to make a debut. I was thinking when he came on, maybe he could have came on a little bit earlier, but in fairness, I think sometimes for young players, especially someone who hasn't played rugby union a lot in general, never mind at senior level, it's probably no harm for them to make a kind of innocuous debut, just come on in a game we're winning last minute. He doesn't need a big performance. Just to get the debut over with, but I think he did really well. He has that bit of gas about them. When I saw him on the team sheet, I actually had no idea who he was, and I assumed he probably covered fullback or wing, considering the other back on the bench was a centre along with the scrum half. So I was thinking, he's probably going to fit into one of those positions. But yeah, look, it's good to see him. I think he's actually from my hometown of Bray as well, so he's someone I'll keep an eye on. But look, he did really well, and in fairness, it's not easy to play a different version of the sport. It's something we've seen Hugo Keenan do particularly well, so maybe he'll become a big player for Leinster and perhaps even the Ireland 15 side in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good to see. And just the fact that he was selected was a statement in itself, because there's a lot of different ways Leinster could have gone with that. So obviously they've seen what he can do in training, and this selection showed that Leinster do see him with some kind of a future. So we wish him all the best going forward. Okay, so listen, we're gonna just to take a quick look at one of the comments we got on the Facebook page. This is from Gavin Hegarty. He said, normal-ish service resumed. I thought Osborne was great, most likely Ireland's 15 for the Autumn's Internationals in winter. Harry looked confident, but did try a tad too hard in part. Far from perfect, but a step in the right direction. That's end quote there. So yeah, please be sure to tune into our Facebook page and leave a comment on our post after the full-time whistle of every Leinster and Ireland match this season. Okay, look, we're going to leave it there for now. Many thanks to Kieran for joining us. Thanks for that, and look to having you back on again soon. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jeff.
And as ever, be sure to stay tuned to us on all the socials during the week, starting with our bonus chat posting on YouTube Tuesday, where we'll be harping on Kieran Frawley. Then our 80 Plus column, which is every Wednesday over on Substack. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.